Hey everyone, welcome back to Endstep, the Upkeep After Show. Last week, we all played Precon decks, and now we're just going to talk a little bit about the game, talk about some of our favorite moments, some cool cards. First though, want to say, if you haven't seen that episode of Upkeep, go watch it. This is not going to make any sense if you don't watch it. First, I kind of want to just go around the table and see why everyone chose the Precon that they chose. So, Steven, why did you go with this mono black Warhammer Precon?
Well, if I'm being honest, the main reason is because it's the only Precon that I have that I've made no changes to.
Fair.
And so I already had it. And, you know, then part of that's just me being cheap and not wanting to go buy a new Precon. But also, I hardly ever use this deck. I've never won a game with it. I've never had, upgraded it at all. And, I mean, it's a cool theme, but it's I just feel like it does what it does well, but not well enough. Preston,
why did you go with, Mizzix?
Of the Ismagus. So there are two main reasons. So the first is I've never played with any of the experience counter decks that they made back in, this was 2015, right? So I was like, I thought that'd be fun. And specifically, I ended up choosing this deck because I really like the backup commander, Arjun, the Shifting Flame. After we're done with this episode, I really want to build around this guy. Because as if you've seen if you've watched the gameplay video, he can get a little nutty when you pair him with a couple of certain cards, so...
Just maybe don't put any you have no maximum hand sizes in there. Because otherwise...
No, you should. I think that's the best part about building him as a commander is you could take yourself out every single game, which is awesome.
Tommy, why did you go with Edgar Markov? I'm so curious. I have no idea why you would have chosen...
I mean, it's Edgar. He's one of the most... it's not popular. There's not a lot of... He's not like top 10 on the list or anything, but he's very popular.
He's probably the most expensive commander, single from any Precon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. But I mostly chose him because I like vampires as a creature type and as to build around. They're very fun. I like the Mardu colors, red, white, and black. I think they're my favorite colors. I think I've had other iterations of vampire decks that we've seen. I had Strafon, the Precon from Crimson Vow. I have Clavileño, the Precon from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, which is super fun. Both of those decks are super fun. But I mean,
if you're gonna play vampires, play the vampires.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're gonna play the vampires, I might as well go all out and just get the top tier vampire commander. So that was the biggest thing. And so I have the Precon that I had to kind of piece together from other cards. I did not open this in the box. I was not playing Commander back in 2017, so I had to. And an unopened Edgar Markov Precon is like $300, $350 at the time we recorded this. So not cheap. So
if you're watching and you notice that some of Tommy's set symbols are different. Every card in his deck is in the Edgar Markov Precon. Yes. It's just pieced together one card at a time because it's cheaper to do it that way.
Yeah, I think in total, not counting Edgar himself, because Edgar himself is almost $100, to build this was, I think, about $130, I want to say.
Yeah, it sounds a lot less expensive than 300 whatever.
Yeah. So if you eagle-eyed viewers notice that some arts might be different or some set symbols, if you can even see it on the footage, I don't know how far we can zoom in on with the camera, but that's why I had to piece it together. But I did my homework. I looked on several different websites, several different sources to be like, okay, make sure this is the official deck list. And got those cards. So it is the Precon, how it would play out of the box, just some different sets, different versions of cards. But I mean, to get back to it, the reason I got him is just because it's Edgar. He's infamous. He has a reputation. He's super fun. And I've played vampires before, so let's go all the way. Let's get the best one that they got. So.
Heck yeah. I went with this one. I still hadn't decided exactly what Precon I was going to do. Then the Doctor Who Precons came out. We got them, and I was just taking a look at them, and, Morgan actually pointed out, I think you'd be interested in the Fourth Doctor. I said, why? He said, because it lets you look at the top card of your library at any time. And anyone here will tell you That's one of my favorite things in Magic to do. It's just look at the top card of my library, whatever I want. Whatever I want? Ha! That sounds fantastic. So, 100%, the only reason that I picked this is because of that first line of text that says you can look at the top card of your library at any time. That's 100% it. Now, did anyone have any cards that they didn't get to play that maybe they wanted to show off? Steven, did you have anything?
The only card that I could think of was the like board wipe, but it does everything but artifact creatures. I can't remember what it's called.
Their name is Death.
I milled it. So
such is the way with mill decks. Sometimes you just have to get rid of the one thing you want. So
yeah, and like with how much I was like with that enchantment I had, like I knew I was gonna play it. Like it's risky, and for the most part, it did benefit me. But then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna have to mill like by my last turn 11 cards.
Preston?
So I think the main two I wanted to point out are Psychosis Crawler and Windfall. So Psychosis Crawler just says the main important thing to say is whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. And Windfall is when each player discards his or her hand, then draws a card equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So if I have these guys out with Arjun, I probably just win that game almost every single time.
Yeah. You especially got to, I mean, you got to the point where you had 50 cards in hand, and then the next spell you cast, you were going to draw 100 cards. If you had Psychosis Crawler on the battlefield when you did that,
we'd be dead.
we would have died
Yeah.
long before you milled yourself out. So, really, really strong combo if you're running Arjun as the commander. Tommy?
So a couple of them. The main two I wanted to point out were Door of Destiny. It's a 4-mana artifact. That as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. So vampires are very good in typal decks. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on it, and then creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on it. I think I actually used this in the Lord of the Rings episode. I think this is in that deck, and if left unchecked, it can get very powerful and make all of your creatures very powerful as soon as they hit the battlefield without needing anything.
Absolutely. It's
So it's a very good anthem effect for typal decks.
Yeah, staple in typal decks.
Yeah, for sure. And so having it in the Precon is one of the better cards in the deck. And then another one, probably more famous, Sanguine Bond. 3/2 black. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Known for going infinite with its sort of counterpart card of Exquisite Blood, which is not in this Precon, unfortunately. They didn't put an infinite combo in a Precon. I wonder why.
Oh, why would they do that?
But then Exquisite Blood says, whenever I lose life, or whenever opponents lose life, I gain that much life. So it just, you get those on the battlefield, change one opponent's life total by 1 anywhere, and it just loops on itself until it
Or
drains
you gain
everyone.
any amount of life.
Oh yeah, that's why I say change any life total by any amount, and it triggers it and loops it infinitely. So super fun combo, very flavorful for a vampire deck to have one that's literally about bleeding your opponents, and then gaining all that life.
Truly the way a vampire would want to take out the enemy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Turning your opponents into smoothies.
Yeah, pretty much.
100%.
Yeah, pretty much. And then another one that I wanted to mention, mostly just because it's a cool card, and I think it was only ever printed in this Precon, was Lycia, Sanguine Tribune. She costs 5 and 1 of each Mardu color, so she's expensive, but she costs 1 generic less to cast for each 1 life you gain this turn. So in a vampire deck, when you're getting a bunch of life, easy to get her out for cheap. She's a 4/4 with first strike and lifelink. And you can pay 5 life and put 3 +1/+1 counters on her. But you can only activate that on your turn and only once each turn. So she's just real powerhouse that if you set her up right, you can get her out for pretty cheap. And she's just a fun card to have. So
Cool. The only card I wanted to point out was Displaced Dinosaurs. I skimmed through this Precon before we played, because I hadn't looked at it at all. I really kind of wanted to go into this blind. Morgan asked that I look at it a little bit just to make the editing a little bit easier so that I knew what was in the deck. Fair. But when I saw this card when I was looking through the deck, I chuckled to myself and I just started giggling because I thought about it. I was like, play a Soul Ring for 1 mana, it comes in as a 7/7? What? And as you could see in the game, I had a lot of fun with this card. It's really cool. I'm gonna start putting this into other decks just because it's goofy. It's fun. I like goofy cards like this. You know, we kind of talked about it a little bit already, but I didn't know if anybody had a favorite moment in the game that isn't the obvious favorite moment.
I think we all have the same.
Do we all feel like Preston killing himself was the best moment in the game?
Preston killing himself by milling himself out, which is the first time we've seen that happen at all on the channel.
On accident, too. Like, none of us realized that he was going to mill himself out until he passed the turn, and we were like, wait a minute, he can't cast a spell now.
Oh, I knew, like, 2 or 3 turns ahead of time what was about to happen. I just didn't say anything until it was ready.
That was an all-star moment. I certainly won't be forgetting that anytime soon.
Yeah.
That was one of the best moments I've ever seen in any game of Magic, recorded or not.
Fantastic. Definitely went out on his own terms.
Of course.
So
that's how you want to do it, right? You don't want to go out at the mercy of your
That's the
opponent.
Preston special right there.
Yeah, there you go.
You either gain and go to 4-digit life, and if you can't do that, then take yourself out. Go out on your own terms.
Yeah, and you did that back on when we played with Jason's decks. You went out on your own terms.
My favorite thing to do.
I love it.
I like it more than winning, to be honest.
I know that we all kind of have some plans for these decks, but as far as upgrades go, anyone have any specific thing that they wanted to talk about, how they want to change their deck to make it better? I know that you said, Steven, that you haven't upgraded it at all or changed it in any way. Is that something that you're going to kind of move towards now that you've played it on the show, or?
Well, so this is actually the second time I brought it on the show. I brought it back on episode 2, so 30 episodes ago, where we all played with the Warhammer Precons. And I remember that game, like, it was slower, and I kind of came back a little, I mean, not kind of came back, because I didn't win. I feel like every time I play this deck, it's the same thing. Like, it kind of works, it kind of does what it's supposed to do. It probably isn't, like, really good enough unless I upgrade it, but I don't know if I want to bother with it. I'm not even a big fan of Warhammer as it is, and so it's like, I mean, it's a cool idea for sure, but like, I don't know what I plan. I have even debated just selling the deck as it is,
right?
Just because I just don't use it.
Preston, you said that you were going to build a commander deck around the backup commander in that.
Yeah.
How much of the deck are you going to keep together? Do you think you're going to change a lot of it, or?
I mean, I think there's a bunch of cards in here I'll keep, but there's definitely some where, like, this mana is a little too specific for my taste, or I think it just doesn't really work with him as much as it does with Mythic, so maybe about somewhere between half and 60% would be my rough guess.
That's how much you would change?
No, what I could probably keep.
Okay.
At least to, like, start off and start doing some testing with it, but yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, they seem like they want to do similar things. Not exactly the same, but it would stand to reason that most of that deck would work for the backup commander.
I'm probably kicking her out of the deck. What he really wants is your really cheap instants.
Yep.
That
Makes
are like
sense.
1 or 2 mana, so you can just always keep whatever hand you want.
Just
ready to
cycling
go.
through your cards.
Yeah. So that's probably the main thing.
Yeah.
And Tommy, you've already bought 2 vampire precons. You know, now you have the king of all vampire precons. So I imagine that you have a lot of upgrades planned.
Oh yes, I do. I want to turn this deck into a menace. I want to go hard on upgrading this guy. He's super fun. But I think, starting off, first things first, gotta fix that land base. The lands in Commander 2017 had some of the best commanders, had 2 of the best commanders of all time, in
And
Edgar
some of the best
Ur
commander
Dragon.
cards with like Teferi's Protection,
Teferi's
stuff like that.
Because Teferi's Protection is in this precon. But man, the lands are just, having now 7 years of hindsight, 6.5 years of hindsight.
Right.
They're not great. There's some stuff. Just literally right here on the top that I had. Kabira Crossroads enters tapped. It gains 2 life, so that's okay, but it only taps for a white. I'd almost rather just have the planes. The life gain is nice, but it's a vampire deck. There are so many better ways to gain life.
And I imagine that you could take a lot of cards out and replace them with cards that will gain you life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's tons of other life gain cards or even lands that will gain me life.
Or even vampires.
Yeah, and so it's just that's like one specific example, but just the land base and the mana base in general is pretty rough by today's standards. So that's the first thing that's got to go. And then there's still some stuff in here that doesn't make a whole lot of sense or is just kind of mid on its own. That like it works, but there's way better options now. Like we saw the Well of Lost Dreams that lets me pay mana according to how much life I gained and draw cards.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool draw engine, but like there's better things that could fill an artifact slot like that, or there's better things that now exist that can take its place that either do the same thing as it or do something else that's more beneficial to what the deck is trying to do.
And you probably don't even need to do a whole lot of research into what cards you're going to add in because you have all the options from the other Vampire Precons. I imagine it's just going to be, take a lot of the best cards out of there, put them into Edgar, and then, fill in the gaps here and there when you need to.
That's definitely how it's going to start, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, this one is going to be an ongoing project. I want to make I want to make him a very powerful deck. I like the Mardu color combination. I like vampires. I like Edgar. So I want to make him very powerful, but yeah, it's definitely just going to start with, I just have a ton of options just from those two decks on their own that I'm going to start with that and then go from there.
Edgar Markov, CEDH. Tommy, I never thought I'd hear you say it.
He's not, I don't know if I'd make him full CEDH, but he's going to be
pretty darn close.
He's going to be high power.
Yeah, for me, I don't know how much I would change out of this deck. One thing that I think that this Precon does really well, it works well with the cards that are already in it, and I think it's because it's a Universes Beyond set, and so they want all the cards in the Precon to really be focused on that universe that they're promoting or whatever. So I think a lot of these cards work really well together, so I don't know that I would change a whole lot. And even the mana base is pretty dang good. I mean, there's a lot of lands in there that enter the battlefield tapped always, but there's more lands in there that have conditions where they won't enter the battlefield tapped at all, whether that's just all the basics that are going to enter untapped, or lands like Canopy Vista, things like that they have a condition where they will enter untapped.
Check lands or stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think that the mana base on here is actually pretty solid. I would only change out maybe 3 or 4 lands, and I mean, knowing me, I'm probably going to take some lands out of the deck.
So you might just cut those lands and put other stuff in there.
It's very possible. But I had a lot of fun with it. I would really need to play it more to see, because like I said, I went into this essentially blind. I didn't want to know a whole lot about this going in. I kind of wanted to just bust it out of the box, sleeve it up, and play, kind of like that traditional. You and your friends just got home from the store. You just bought these Precon decks. Let's bust them out, sleeve them up, and go at each other. So I kind of wanted to keep it in that spirit. It's like just for myself. So I would just need to play it more to see what I would need to change and what upgrades I would need to make. But as is, the deck's pretty strong. That kind of leads me to my next point. We all have Precons from different periods of time. Preston, yours is the oldest Precon, right? Came out in
2015,
and then it was yours 2017.
17.
Ours aren't too far apart. What was yours, like 2021?
22.
2022, and then this one's 2023. Just kind of looking at the deck compositions and viewing the mana bases and all that stuff and the kind of cards that they put in the Precons. How do you guys feel like Precons have evolved over the years? I mean, just from 2015 to 2023.
Oh, they're objectively 1,000 times better.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think there's a few individual cards that are better in some of the old ones. Like
a Teferi's Protection in the old...
Teferi,
and...
Atraxa.
Yep.
Like, there's plenty of individual cards that are great in the older Precons that are probably some of the best ever, but...
And the commanders from the older Precons are really good,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it is just, like, power creep is so real in Magic. Like, and this sort of shows it, just the difference between my deck and your deck, or Preston's deck and your deck, of just, like, how much better and how much more synergistic and how much more efficient yours is compared to what ours were doing, is, like, kind of shows off how the power creep in the format, but even in all of Magic has just kind of has shot up. And so it's just that, and I think they're over this. It feels like a much more sudden change, but I feel like just the past couple of years they are far less afraid to make Precons like some very viable out of the box.
Yeah.
It feels like some of this older stuff, like looking at this list for Edgar Markov. It's Edgar Markov. He's like super powerful commander, but out of the box, he's scary, but he's not. It's not that bad.
Yeah, the mana base just takes him a while to get going.
Yeah, and so like it feels like they were more meant in previous years to you can get them and they're playable.
Right.
They
theoretically.
went from like 4 to 5
but-
to 6 through 8s.
Yeah, yeah. They went from very mid tier to like higher up tier, and they got much more efficient and much faster. And
I mean, just looking at our decks compared to your decks, I feel like our decks synergize well just with the stock cards, with the cards that came in the Precon. I feel like everything synergized really, really well on our boards. Not that your guys' wasn't.
Well, the way they used to do Precons is you had 3 decks basically.
Yeah.
Sort of thrown together. You had 3/3 of a deck thrown together because it was your main commander, your backup commander, and one other option as a commander. That's how almost all the Precons used to be. So they didn't work very well because you were trying to do 3 different things that maybe did this sort of the same thing. Like Arjun and Mizzix both want to do instants and sorceries for the most part, but they don't really help each other or hurt each other all that much. So, and that's one of the better options, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
When you look at some of those older ones.
And these ones are just a little bit more focused.
Yeah, all the commanders want to do a lot more similar things nowadays.
Cool. Well, I guess the only thing left to talk about is Revenge Week. As you may know, I have the distinct pleasure of sitting out of Revenge Week for the 2nd year in a row. So do any of you guys think that you're going to be bringing these Precons back for Revenge Week? Or did you have other decks in mind that you were going to bring back?
Definitely not bringing this deck back.
What are you bringing back?
I'm leaning towards Shadrick Silverquill. But I'm not 100% sure yet.
You got a little bit of time. Shadrix would be cool, though.
Shadrick is cool.
I definitely won't be bringing this back because I do want to build around the other commander, but that's going to take a bit, and I think I had a good enough time with this deck as it is right now.
I think you did fine.
As for what I'm bringing back, almost certainly going to be Sleevers at this point.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Tommy,
Edgar gonna reappear on the show?
talked about it before. Edgar won't be the commander, but we will see some vampires, and I probably will take some pieces out of this to put in that and use for that episode.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be Clavileño. It was just so
Heartbreaking.
so heartbreaking that it got to just do nothing in its episode that like I gotta bring it back. Edgar, I didn't win, but I did all right. You got to do the things you want to do, and I'm okay with that. Clavileño just didn't get to do anything, so it's gonna be him. I'll probably pull some pieces out. Probably use Door of Destinies. I may have put a Sanguine Bond Exquisite Blood combo into it already.
May or may not have.
May or may not have. We'll have to watch the episode to find out. There's some other stuff in here that I'll probably add. So I mean, I'll use pieces of this, and it'll be vampires, but it won't be Edgar.
You
But
taking any of the lands out for it?
no.
Well, fellas, I certainly can't wait to see that episode. Because I won't be in it, of course. Anybody have any closing thoughts about the game or these precons in general? You know, how we feel the season went? Season's basically over now.
It is.
Yeah. Anybody have any, closing thoughts on this game or any games that we've played before?
Been a good season. I hope
fun.
people have been enjoying the content. It's been great making it. Almost every episode has been knock out of the park. Loved all the themes we got to do this season.
I definitely think that the episodes this season were. I think
very
that
needy tonight.
she just she needs the pants. I do think overall there were more episodes this season, but I do think like the episodes in general were just. It just felt more fun, I think, than season 1 overall.
I think
Like,
maybe
there's
because we had a
more
little
to
bit clearer of a vision for this season
Yeah,
than we did
for
the
sure.
first season, and there were a lot of episodes that we were all really looking forward to. And because I know the Secret Santa episode, we were all
Right,
really
well-
hyped for that episode.
Well, and Magic sends us a bunch of free stuff, so that's pretty nice.
Wow, we love you, Wizards.
That's pretty awesome.
Thank you, Wizards. Yeah, I don't know. I just have fun playing Magic with the boys. It's fun. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. I like playing Magic with you guys, and glad we can record it and bring some entertainment to people.
Yeah, I think it's been a great season for us. I'm excited for the future of the channel and all the other content that we have to come. We all appreciate you. Keep watching. Like I said at the beginning, go check out other episodes. And we'll see you guys later.